Hello, welcome back to Geekatplay Studios, and this is another video tutorial on molding, or rather modeling a bookshelf in Modo. Now, granted, the nature of this model, creating a bookshelf, is extremely easy. So the focus of this tutorial is not necessarily on modeling the carcass of it, but I want to create these raised panels, doors here, and create this arch shape like you see here, and so that's where the focus of this tutorial is going to be. And I'm going to presume that if you have Modo, you have some basic understanding of the tools and how they work. Pretty much this is a tutorial on how to create that arched raised panel door. So beginning with a new scene, I'm going to create a polygon cube primitive, and I'm going to hold down control and drag it out so it's symmetrical. Now the size I want is along the X. I want 25 inches, and for the Y amount I want 6 feet, and for the Z amount I'm going to go with 13 inches. Spacebar to drop that tool. Now with polygons, I'm going to select my front face there, hit the B key for bevel, click over there, and I'm going to drag my red slider here. I want to drag it in 1.25 inches or 1.25 inch, because this is going to be the molding for 1.25. This is going to be the molding, no, the other way. There we are, for the face of it. There we are. Spacebar to drop that tool. Now I'm going to hit delete to get rid of that front polygon there. I'm going to select those two front edges, L on the keyboard to loop that, Control X to cut that. I'm going to create a new mesh, Control V to paste those polygons in there. I'm going to select both of them, L on the keyboard to select that whole front, all those front faces. I'm going to hit X on the keyboard, click over here in an empty area, and now I'm just going to drag this out. And I did not do a very good job there. Let's loop that. X, click. I keep moving my mouse when I'm clicking. There we are. Drag that out. I want to drag this out 3/4 of an inch, 0.75 inches. Spacebar to drop the tool. Now what I want this to be is the front molding on this. So what I want to do is double click with edge mode. I want to double click and select that entire loop. I'm going to hit B for bevel. Let me zoom out a little bit, and I'm just going to create a very, very, very small bevel here, because all it needs to do is just be a little visual indicator that this is a piece of molding on here. Spacebar to drop the tool, and now you see that I've got some molding on the front of it. Okay, with this molding selected, Control X to cut it from that mesh. Come up to my carcass here, Control V to paste that in, and I'm going to go ahead and name this cabinet right now. I'll hide the molding. I'll hide that extra mesh. Actually, it's empty, doesn't matter. Okay, with polygon selected, I'm going to select this bottom polygon, Control X, come over here to my empty mesh, Control V to paste that in there. I'm going to select it, and now what I want to do is I'm going to use this polygon for two things. I'm going to use it to create shelves and use it to create the polygons for the faces of my cabinet doors. So with that polygon selected, X on the keyboard, click, and I'm going to drag this up 18 inches, 8 inches. Spacebar to drop that tool. I'll hide my cabinet. I only need 2 polygons. I need those 2 right there. So I'm going to select those, hit the open bracket to invert that selection, and delete. I'm going to select this front face here, Control X, create a new mesh, Control V to paste that in there, and I will call this door, and which leaves this last one here, and I'll call this shelf. Okay, we've got everything that we need so far. Let's select our shelf. Now this is the exact same width as the cabinet, so I'm going to hit my R key and bring it in just a little bit. There we are. Okay, let me hide my door here. With that selected, I'm going to hit X on my keyboard, and I'm going to drag down 3/4 of an inch, minus 0.75 inches. And this is going to be the first shelf that we create. I'm going to come over here and select edges. I'll select those two edges, B for bevel, click over here, and I want to add a roundness level of 2. And so now I'm just going to drag in here and create a bullnose profile or face on this cabinet. There we are. Come back to my door. Okay, with my shelf selected, I'm going to come over here to duplicate and clone. I'm going to create 3 clones, so that'll give me a total of 4 shelves. I'm just going to click in here, and now I'm going to drag upwards and arrange these how I think they would look good. Make the top one maybe a little bit. There we go. Okay, spacebar to drop that tool. Got our shelves and our cabinet done, so let's work on these doors here. Let's come in here to polygon mode. I'm going to select that polygon, and before I do anything else, let me save this. Save as cabinet. Overwrite my previous one. Okay, so here's my cabinet face that is selected. I'm going to come over here to mesh edit. I'm going to come over here to loop slice, and I'm just going to click on this polygon right here, which divides it right down the center. Spacebar to drop the tool. Okay, so now I've divided up these doors. With both of them selected, I'm going to hit my R key to my scale tool, and I'm going to bring these in just a little bit. Let me switch to a front view, and I'm going to go to wireframe, and I'll select those two, R key. There we are. I want to bring them in just a little bit more than the edge here, because I've made furniture before, and you do need to allow for the wood to expand and contract in weather as weather changes, to absorb and shed humidity, moisture that the wood naturally absorbs. So I don't want it to be completely flush. That's just not realistic. So I'm happy with that. Spacebar to drop the tool. Let's come select my edges here. W key for my move tool, and I'm going to do the same here, just a little bit above the bottom. Spacebar to drop that. There we are. Okay, I'm going to come back to a shaded view and to a perspective view. Polygon mode. I'm going to select that polygon, and I'm going to drop it and come back here to edges. I'm going to select that edge, W key. I want to move this in just a little bit so that there is a small little gap in between those doors. Spacebar to drop that. Okay, now I've got my door, and I'm going to select that polygon. I'm going to hit B key. Now I'll hit the X key because I need to extrude it out, and I'm going to extrude it out 3/4 of an inch, so 0.75 inches. Spacebar to drop that. Okay, I'm going to select that front face, B key for bevel, and I'm going to bevel this inwards the same amount as the molding on the front of my bookcase. So that's 1.25 inches, 1.25. Spacebar to drop that tool. Let me zoom in here a little bit. B key again, click over there. What I want to do is extrude this inwards just a little bit, not too much. There we are. I'm going to hold down shift and click, and that reactivates the tool. Now I'm just going to bevel inwards a small little amount. 0.25, probably 1/4 of an inch. I'm just eyeballing it here. There we are. Okay, 0.25. 0.25. Let's see what a 1/4 of an inch looks like. That'll work. Okay, spacebar to drop that tool. I'm going to cut this piece from the rest of the geometry. So Control X, new mesh, Control V to paste that in there, and I'll call this panel. Okay, let me hide the door and I guess everything else. Okay, with that polygon selected, I'm going to come over here to Mesh Edit and use the Axis Slice tool. Now I want a number of 30 on the X. The more you add to this, the higher the number you add, the better looking the profile will be for that crescent shape up here. But to keep things easy on this tutorial, I'm just going to add kind of a crude number of 30. And I'm just going to click on my mesh. Now I want to make sure the offset along the X, Y, and Z axis is all set to 0. And I'm happy with that. Spacebar to drop that tool. Now I'm going to use the Loop Slice tool. Now you want to be in automatic mode. Loop Slice, I just want to click right on here, and as you see, that creates a horizontal slice right down the middle. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to move these vertices around to create that crescent shape that was right here along the top of our cabinet door. So I'm going to change the action center to local, and most of my tools are off the screen here because I'm working in a small space. I want fall off, there's fall off. I want fall off to be radial. And I'm just going to click on here. Let me undo that. I want to select my move tool first. This is how I have found this using the fall off to work best. Now with the move tool selected, I will select a radial fall off. Now that activates the tool. I want to come over here to, let me move my tools up. On the shape preset, I want to change this to ease in, because that will ease in the fall off effect of this radial fall off tool. Now when I drag up and down, you see I can create a nice arch shape. But I still want these edges to be flat, so I'm going to over here, if I zoom in, you can see this little red crosshair. What that allows me to do is it allows me to bring in the fall off effect of this tool. Now I found what I think to be the best visually is in positioning this crosshair. If I position it here along on another vertex, then I've got this sharp edge here. So to create a smoother edge, I'm just going to bring it in until it is in between some polygons here. So I'm going to bring it in between, say, those two polygons right there, and I can use my move tool. Let me undo this. W and none and radial, there we are. I'm going to bring it in until it's centered in between the polygons, and now I will drag upwards, but I do need ease in for my linear, for my shape preset, and I'd say that looks pretty good. Spacebar to drop the tool. I'm going to return the fall off to none. W key so I can move these vertices. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag these all the way up to the top. All the way up to the top. There we are. A little bit of extra space there. Spacebar to drop that tool. Come over here to polygons. I'm going to select all of these polygons. B key for bevel. I'm going to click in here. Now I want to make sure group polygons is on, and for profiles here I'm going to open up my profiles. Now I can't move this tab over, unfortunately, but I'm going to select a profile here that I think is kind of a classical look, and now I'm just going to drag outwards. Now I want to be sure here how far I drag out, because as you can see I've dragged out too far, and my geometry is colliding with itself here, so I need to back that up just a tick. Let me zoom in. Good. I've got enough space here in between these edges so that the vertices are not crossing over one another. Spacebar to drop the tool. And let's return here and turn on all of the elements. Okay, I like that. With my panel selected, Control X, come back to my door, Control V to paste all those in there. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to mirror this door and create a second version over here. And so I'm going to select all three of these objects, come over here to my Basic tab, Center Selected, and I'm going to center everything in the center of my 3D universe. Come back to my door, come over here to Duplicate, Mirror, and I want to have X-axis checked, and I want to be on Axis mode. And now I'll just hit Apply, and that, spacebar to drop the tool, and now I've got a clone on both sides. And see, I've got that small little gap right between them, which is what I wanted. So I still got my door selected. I'm coming over here to Edge mode, double click that edge, double click that edge, B for bevel, and roundness level of 2 is fine. I'm just going to create a small, very small little bevel just to knock off that hard edge when we go to render it. I think it'll look a lot better. Okay, we are 16, almost 17 minutes into this tutorial. We've got one more thing to do. I'm going to spin around to a top view like that because let me enable my work plane. That will automatically orient my work plane down here on the horizontal up like this. It always rotates around depending upon the orientation where I move things around. So I want it down here because now what I want to do is create a cylinder. I'm going to hold down Control and drag out a cylinder. And to make this tutorial a little bit faster, I'm just going to create, where is it? 3 segments, 12 sides. Spacebar to drop that tool. I can hide my work plane now. I don't need that. These are going to be the hinges. Actually, let me double click that, select all those polygons. I'm going to come over here to this empty mesh, which was my panel. Let me select all those polygons. Oops, I need to come back over here, select all those polygons, Control X. I'm just going to paste them in here. Control V to paste, and we'll name this hinge, or hinges, because we're going to make 4 of them. Okay, these are a little big right now, so let's Action Center, Automatic, R to bring up my scale tool, and I'm going to scale these. Actually, maybe local will work better. There we are, local, and I'll stretch it upwards, and it's probably going to be a good time to save. Spacebar to drop the tool, W, and let's bring these into play here. I'm going to spin around to a top view and come to a wireframe, and let's move these into place here. There we are, R key, and let's bring the size of these down a little bit. W key to move it out. Spacebar to drop that. I'm going to come back to a perspective view and come back to a shaded view. W key. Now I can move these down. Into place. Have a final look. Oh, that looks good. Okay, let's see. Oh, those are a little bit too large. R key to bring up the scale, and we'll scale these down a little bit. Let's back out, see what they look like. Oh, that'll work. Okay. Edge mode. I'm going to double click that edge, double click that edge, hold down Shift. B for bevel. I'm going to click in here, and I want to bring the round level down to 0, and I'm just going to create a small, come on now, work for me. I'm going to create, there we are, small, there we are, small little offset. Spacebar to drop that tool, select those, loop them, R for my scaling tool. I'm going to scale these in and then scale them up, and these will be the little hinges that open and close our doors. Spacebar to drop that tool. Let's have a look at it. Hey, that looks good. Okay, I am going to right click and choose duplicate. Come back to polygon mode. Now I noticed when I duplicate something, it automatically goes to item, and if it's on item, and if I try to move it, I never get my my little move tools here. Got to be in polygon or some other mode. Now I can move, let me come to my first one here and move this where I want it to be. I want to try to visually just make the top of this hinge even with the top of this piece of molding here. Okay, come to my second one and move this down here. There we are. Okay, Control X to, wait a minute. Control X to take all those polygons and come over here. Control V to paste them in there. Okay, spacebar to drop that. Let me select all of those polygons. W key. And let's move that back down. Spacebar to drop the tool. Okay, well, we know everything is centered here, so with my hinges selected, come over here to duplicate and mirror, and all my parameters are still set to what they need to be, and so I'm just going to hit the apply button. Now here it is, and it places my hinges over there. Spacebar to drop that tool. Let's come over here to the render tab. Shift A. Let's zoom in here and let's see what our cabinet doors look like. And there we are. We got that nice profile. Now if you zoom in, you will notice that this edge here is a little bit crude, but like I said, I only added 30 segments to subdivide this. You probably want to add a few more and certainly make it a little bit cleaner looking. So that's creating these raised panels here in Modo. Hope you found this tutorial to be helpful to you. Thanks for watching here at Geekatplay Studios. My name's Gary Miller. Have a good day.